This presentation is to help you understand the root cause of your shoulder pain so you can relieve your pain anytime that you want and understand the holistic reasons that you're feeling that way so you can get a better understanding of your entire body and how it works to have an optimal quality of life. All of your nerves come from the spine, and each group of nerves leading to an organ or a muscle comes from a certain vertebra. And you can identify the cause of your pain by looking for the location of the pain and the connected organ. So when you have gallbladder issues, for instance, this can cause deferred pain in your right shoulder, down your right arm, or even your head because that's where the nerve goes. So the nerve which leads to the right shoulder is connected to the liver and the gallbladder, and the liver performs over 500 functions. So it needs special attention in order to support all of these. Its functional purpose plays a role in our digestion in conjunction with the gallbladder. It releases toxins and needs to emulsify fat in order to use or release with the toxins. Blockages in the pathway can hinder function and cause the pain that you're feeling. Eating regularly is helpful in order to encourage rhythmic contraction of the gallbladder, as the gallbladder does contract regularly throughout the day. For instance, it's a good idea to be eating 3 meals a day rather than not eating at all and then only eating at night, because that will lead the gallbladder to fill up with bile, which can potentially become stagnant, and if it only releases at night, then it will not be flowing like it should. Sufficient amount of calories, specifically fat, is important because, one, your body needs enough energy in order to function, and your body needs a definite amount of calories in order to get enough energy to produce bile, because producing bile is a taxing process and it does require specific materials. In addition to that, you need fat with every meal because in order for cholecystokinin to lead the gallbladder to contract, there must be fat in the duodenum. Fat quality is also something to keep in mind, as saturated fats are the most stable because they're the most saturated. Monounsaturated fats are still good, still fairly stable. However, you shouldn't be using them to do heavy-duty cooking like high-temperature baking, roasting, or frying, like deep frying, because since monounsaturated fat is unstable, it has a greater probability of becoming rancid and inflaming the gallbladder when it's cooked because of the instability. It's very labile. Vegetable oils and polyunsaturated fats are the most vulnerable to rancidity and leading to inflammation in the gallbladder, because if they're not stored properly or if they're cooked, this can cause issues because it's so vulnerable. Because it's so unsaturated, that means it's unstable and it can easily become rancid or become inflammatory because it's not meant to be cooked, and that can harm the gallbladder. So you want to make sure when you're using a polyunsaturated product, you make sure it's in a dark bottle and it's stored how it needs to be and it's not too refined. Canola oil is very highly refined oil, and if you're going to try to avoid, to the best of your ability, one oil, I would say that's the one. Canola oil is actually made from an originally inedible oil called rapeseed. It's just highly processed in order to try to make it digestible. But I would not recommend it. It's almost always genetically modified, which is less than ideal. But don't ruin your life over just trying to cut out canola oil. It's in a lot of things, so we just have to accept that and detox properly and support our body in the best way we can while still living an optimal life. If you have fatty liver, which is possible with severe liver and gallbladder issues, exercise can be helpful. Exercise is always a good idea unless you're taking in too few calories to make up for it. Then it can become taxing on the body, and I would not recommend it in that situation. One of the most supportive nutrients that can help abate the pain that you're feeling in your right shoulder includes choline. Choline helps thin the bile, and it painlessly helps move anything that's blocking the gallbladder liver area out. And you'll notice a variety of benefits from this. It can clear the skin because of the detoxifying effects that it has. It can help you have better bowel movements, and it overall optimizes fat synthesis and distribution throughout the body, which can reduce fatty liver and also help with weight loss. Lecithin is very helpful for emulsification, so I like taking it with an oil, or you could add it into your smoothies if you like to put fat in there, like flaxseed oil or avocado. Basically, it just helps you to digest the fat better, and it prevents your liver from becoming inflamed as a result of the fat, and it makes sure that you absorb the fat. Because if you're not taking lecithin with your fats and your gallbladder and liver area is inflamed, that can actually just lead to more inflammation and a waste of the product or supplement because you're not going to absorb it. Betaine is highly beneficial for the gallbladder and the liver because it helps thin the bile, which reduces pain by reducing blockages and helping everything move through more easily. Betaine can be taken in 2 specific supplements, either betaine HCl, which increases stomach acid. You want to make sure that's what you need and what is good for your body at your current state before taking it. You don't want to take it if you have ulcers or a very sensitive gut lining because that can hinder your problems. TMG, or trimethylglycine, is also a form of betaine which can really help with methylation, which is a process that controls your DNA expression and pretty much every function of your biology. You also want to make sure this is something that fits for you, because if you're an overmethylator, this can add more methyl donors and this can cause issues. But I would say for most people, TMG is probably more universally safe, but it's best to get some form of biofeedback done to make sure that's right for you, and we will discuss those options later. TUDCA is highly beneficial. It's really good at protecting the liver and thinning the bile, and it's very potent. So this one you might experience some pain because of how well it moves anything out of the gallbladder and bile. So if you do have something blocking that area, you might feel it. But taking TUDCA regularly will prevent this from happening in the first place. Some foods that are really beneficial include beets, which are high in betaine, as do beet greens. Apples, apple juice, and raw apple cider vinegar are all very helpful because they contain malic acid, which thins the bile and also can dissolve bile stones, which is very helpful for pain. It also dilates the gallbladder duct, so it makes it whiter, so if something does have to pass through, that's a lot less painful. Sour foods in general really help the liver to empty out the bile, so that can be helpful for fatty liver and in general just the pain that you're feeling. Bitter foods are really important to have more frequently. They were a lot more common before modernization of the food system became so prevalent. Bitter greens can be helpful, like with your meals, such as arugula. You can also take bitters in the form of digestive bitters, which can be made available in a tincture or in a spray. Those are really good to take before your meals to prevent pain, and also if you're having pain, they can help that as well. It can also help with nausea. Nausea is normally an issue with your gallbladder. Soluble fiber is really important. It can help bind to the old congested bile and carry it out of the body so that the gallbladder makes new, fresh, free-flowing bile that will eliminate pain and make sure that you don't have the pain. The body will conserve energy however it can, and it takes energy in order to create bile. That's why it tends to recycle it if you're not binding. So beans are the best source of soluble fiber. There's even a bean diet, which can include as much as having beans like 10 times throughout the day in small amounts, or just having beans with every one of your meals. Psyllium seed is a good alternative for beans if you don't like those or if they cause issues for you. You can take that in the form of a supplement, which probably is the easiest. Oats and chia also have soluble fiber, but not as much as the former 2 options. Diet can definitely have an effect on the gallbladder and liver function and the pain that you're having. but not only in the form of excess, also when you're under eating, which is, in my experience, a lot more common, especially with people who have any kind of knowledge of health information. They tend to actually undereat. Alcohol, of course, can cause inflammation in the liver and gallbladder, so it's important to make sure that you're not having pain after you're drinking and you're not drinking in excess. But most often I find the biggest hindrance on the liver and gallbladder are actually pathogenic, most often in the form of parasites. We are not very informed as a society of the prevalence of parasites. Even the testing, when people do have enough knowledge to send in samples of parasites, cannot identify the wide variety of parasites that actually exist because only a small fraction is in their testing database. Parasites can be contracted from soil, from going barefoot. Children tend to have a lot more exposure. If you have a dog or any kind of animal, you're a lot more likely to have a heavier burden of pathogens, especially parasites. You can get them from food, like undercooked meat, or in improperly washed vegetables. So pretty much everyone is exposed, and culturally, almost every society used to regularly detox parasites, and many still do. So it's important to do this, in my opinion, regularly, because everyone does have some form of them, whether or not they're visible, and whether or not you know that the symptoms you're having are actually caused by parasites. Viruses like Epstein-Barr or COVID and long COVID can also cause inflammation in the liver. Some people end up with fatty liver that are not overweight and have never had liver issues before after having COVID. It's potentially possible that you do have liver inflammation due to poor blood sugar handling, specifically diabetes, so it's important to make sure you get that checked out, as the liver does play a role in blood sugar handling, not just the pancreas. Toxins in the environment can, of course, be a hindrance on the liver, so it's important to regularly detox. It's good to try to avoid toxins to the highest degree possible, but you don't want to hinder your quality of life by being afraid of and trying to avoid these. Heavy metals specifically can cause an environment that allows pathogens like yeast and parasites to thrive, because these actually act as a barrier between our body and the heavy metals. So in addition to detoxing parasites, you want to make sure you're regularly finding heavy metals and detoxing them safely as your individual biology requires. When the liver and the gallbladder are impaired, this can cause a backup into other systems of the body, particularly the lymph, as the liver and the gallbladder processes and excretes the fat and the toxins that come from the lymph. This can result in heart issues because the lymph actually filters the blood. So if there's dirtier, more inflammatory substances in the blood, then heart issues can ensue from both inflammation and from an excess of fat clogging the arteries, which can lead to higher blood pressure as well as cholesterol. It leads to higher blood pressure by way of the heart being forced to pump blood faster in order to get the same level of circulation because of that congestion in the arteries. Fatty liver can also ensue because if there's not enough fat being excreted regularly like it should, then it has nowhere to go but the liver, so it stays there. And this can result in a lot of different issues, and if it's allowed to persist, then fatty liver can actually be deadly. There's a higher pathogenic and toxic burden due to poor detoxification. So any parasites or toxins that are in your system, particularly in your liver gallbladder area, they will stay there and it will be allowed to proliferate even more, because if it's not being excreted, then there's more chance of multiplication. And since the bile duct is blocked, this can cause a backup in the pancreas as well, which can lead to pancreatitis, because if the pancreatic enzymes are not allowed to flow down to the bile duct to the duodenum, then the pancreatic enzymes can actually be turned on itself, so the pancreas will be inflamed, and this can cause a lot of issues. And when there's more inflammation and toxins in the body and a buildup of fat in the liver, this can cause increased oxidation, which leads to faster aging or wrinkles, things like gray hair, and you just can't make use of fat, so you can't digest fat-soluble vitamins, and you can't use the fat that you need to make cell membranes, which is really important, and various hormones. You need fat for so many aspects of your health, and it's fundamental. So if you're not being able to do that, then you aren't going to be feeling very well at all. And also, you need not only fat-soluble vitamins in themselves, but you need fat-soluble vitamins as cofactors to things like calcium. So mineral absorption is also hindered. So, as I said, it's important to get to the root cause. And a lot of times that can be some kind of pathogen, a toxin allowing the pathogen to proliferate, or a combination of the two. So no matter who it is or what the actual cause is, you want to make sure that you're binding. You want to make sure that you're taking a binder that will help bind the old congested bile so that new bile that's thinner and that flows properly will be produced. And some of my favorite binders are something called bioactive carbon by Microbe Formulas. I like diatomaceous earth as well. It needs to be food grade. That's made from ground up diatoms, which are very old fossils, microscopic fossils, and they're rich in silica, so that has its own benefits. That helps detox aluminum, which tends to lead to Alzheimer's, but it's also anti-parasitic, and at the same time, it helps contribute to positive calcium utilization. So, for instance, calcium won't accidentally wind up in the gallbladder because it will be properly processed and not put into the soft tissues. This will actually help strengthen your bones, your teeth, your cartilage, your hair, your skin. So it has many benefits. Activated charcoal is also a good option, but that only tends to bind to things in the gut. So it's good to have something systemic. I also like things like shilajit, but you want to make sure it's high quality. I like Mimi's Miracle Minerals. It's in a drop form, which is easier to consume. And I take that anytime I take something anti-parasitic, so like with tincture for parasites. And to understand what you need for parasites, you should probably get some form of biofeedback done, which is your body letting you know what needs to be done in order to heal it properly. So there's something called lingual neurotesting, where you can test supplements on your tongue and put pressure on a point throughout your body that corresponds to an organ and see what actually helps the pain rating of that. Muscle testing is a good option, as long as it's by a reputable practitioner. There are also scanners that can detect from the waves coming from your skin what frequency your organs are on, and therefore what's wrong with them, what they might need. So basically you need to understand your bio-individual needs. And there are also tests that you can take, nutritional quizzes that can identify what you need based on your symptoms. But there are also some fairly safe and reputable options for a variety of people. In particular, for parasites and anything that's in the body that isn't supposed to be there is systemic proteolytic enzymes, as what they do is they go into the body and they clean anything up that isn't supposed to be there. So that's good for people that have inflammation, people that have like cysts, even tumors. It can really help consume anything that isn't supposed to be there. That's what enzymes are designed for. That is, those which are for systemic uses and not just digestion. So things like bromelain, papain, you can get a full spectrum of enzymes. Just make sure they're not for digestion specifically. And it's very important to optimize bowel function and make sure you're having regular bowel movements, and that is dependent on the liver and the gallbladder, so it kind of goes together. But at the same time, once again, you need to support that with your metabolism, because if you're not eating enough calories for your body to trust you enough to start contracting your muscles and expend that energy, then you're going to be constipated. And a lot of people won't believe that they're not eating enough, but in fact they are. And once they start not restricting what they eat and eating whenever they're hungry, they will start having good bowel movements and having them regularly. And as a result, you will feel much better. You'll have less acne, less fatigue, and everything will move better because that allows the liver to release the toxins. Vitamin C can also be helpful for triggering bowel movements, as can triphala, the Ayurvedic herb, and magnesium. You can learn more about getting to the root cause of various illnesses and symptoms by going to pageforwellness.com, which is my website. I specialize in always getting to the root cause of various health issues and helping you to understand exactly why you feel the way that you feel so that you can be in charge of your own health and be empowered to take control of it. Feel free to comment any symptoms or pain patterns that you might like help with, and I will keep it in mind for future videos. I will also include a guide which maps out various pain patterns, and right there it will help you understand the solutions that might be helpful and how to decide what might be helpful, and you also might have them available right in your kitchen right now. And by subscribing to get that guide, you will also gain access to future emails which will go further in depth regarding this pain pattern so you can understand how to apply the information and also how to deal with other issues regarding pain or other symptoms so that you can help yourself and your loved ones.